This is my experiment in sports journalism, a league that's entirely computer generated. Using Madden, I simulated 20 years into the future to create the NFA. All of the players, teams, stats, and standings in this league were derived from whatever Madden's algorithms could come up with once all the real NFL players had retired. Back in high school, I set out to find the stories that were buried in this arbitrary smorgasbord of data. Nearly 4 years of university and one lockdown later, I had built myself a whole sports pocket universe. I even brought some of these computer-generated players to life by hopping in and playing some of the games myself. Here's an example of a player whose story I found really interesting. This is the story of Reese Gardner. He's the starting quarterback for the Georgia Orioles. Last year, the Orioles finished just 9-7, but they managed to sneak into the playoffs by winning their division. And once they got invited to the dance, they made it count. They ended up advancing all the way to the semifinals, nearly booking their trip to the championship. Was Reese Gardner carried by his elite defense? Yeah, maybe a bit. But last year was still a major turning point for his career, which had been pretty pedestrian, especially for a former second overall pick. It was great to see him find some success in this league. But now, Georgia has championships on their mind. Can Gardner live up to these expectations? Alright, so the stage is set. Now you know what's at stake here for Gardner and his Orioles here in this league. So let's have some fun with it. From here on out, I'm going to talk to you from the perspective of a die-hard Georgia Orioles fan. And I'm just going to be telling you guys how I feel. Using stats and highlights taken from Madden to support my argument, I'll give you guys a general sense for how this fictional Georgia Orioles fan base would feel about Gardner at this stage in his career. Alright, here we go. I have to get one thing straight, right off the bat. I know that we're entering now or never territory for Reese Gardner. With how many key Orioles players are playing on the final year of their contracts, there's a pretty good chance that this year's team is the best he's ever going to get in his entire career. So that means Gardner needs to be championship ready now. Not a couple years down the line, not even next year, now. And he wasn't quite there yet as of last season. So, he's going to need to make one more big leap in his career. Okay, so I know that Gardner still needs to get better. I could easily take this time to break down the areas in which he can improve to help Georgia win the title in 2021. But I'm in a pretty good mood right now. I'd rather look back on how far he's already come. I'll leave that harsh reality as more of a cliff note. Because look, the defense deserves most of the credit, sure. But the Orioles would not have found the same success without Reese Gardner and the massive step forward he took in his development last season. That's a fact. For the first time in his career, you could tell that this was his team. He was the leader. He played with confidence. He got things under control whenever they started to get out of hand, and he stepped up his game in the biggest moments. Before this, things had not come easy for Gardner in the league. He endured 3 long years of losing and media scrutiny as he tried to find his way as a pro and live up to the expectations of a franchise quarterback. 2020 was his light at the end of the tunnel. His progress thus far is already something we should be celebrating, no matter what happens this season. Gardner has always had the tools to be special. Great frame, rocket arm, and pretty good mobility in the pocket. These traits are what made him the first quarterback off the board in a 2017 draft class that featured all-division stars Travis Beacham and Kristen Jackson. Predictably, that's something that's caused him an awful lot of derision as their careers have played out. The memes can get a bit harsh. Gardner has had a hard time putting all the tools in his toolbox to good use. He used to play timid, restrained by his system, and possibly overcoached. Things weren't pretty for a good 2-3 seasons. But the Orioles knew they had something they liked in him, and they were determined to see his development through to the end despite the vocal opposition from their fan base. In 2019, we saw flashes of something good. In 2020, he finally made a leap. Gardner stared down two great defenses in Cleveland and Philadelphia during the playoffs, and he didn't blink. Those were gutty victories that led his team just one win away from the championship. He tossed over 3,600 yards and 24 touchdowns last season behind one of the worst offensive lines in the league, standing tall under duress and making the kinds of quick decisions that we hadn't seen from him before. It's a rewarding experience, isn't it? It's nice to watch a quarterback lead his team to the semifinals after being doubted and scrutinized for years. Gardner still has plenty of room to improve, but the Georgia faithful should be proud of what he's grown to become already. The Orioles opted for a more West Coast style offense in 2020 to combat their offensive line issues, a system that proved to be better suited to Gardner's strengths. Now, after a year of experience with this new playbook, there's a good chance that we see this big step forward for the 25-year-old signal caller. Gardner wasn't terrific last year, but he was tough, confident, and poised. Everything the team needed from him as the defense put in the work on the other side of the ball. If he builds off this promising year and becomes that top-tier quarterback we know he can become, Georgia begins to look an awful lot like a super team. A star quarterback behind a much improved offensive line, handing off to an all-division running back with a pretty solid receiving corps? That looks like it could be a pretty good offense. Put that in front of the league's best defense, and you might see the Orioles on the podium come 2021. Somebody get Quavo, because Atlanta is back on the sports map. So that's it. I figured a high draft pick without much production would probably take a lot of crap, right? But a semifinals appearance is nothing to sneeze at. I would reckon that a lot of these Orioles fans would probably feel a sense of pride at the player he's already become, even if he still has a long way to go. This is just a small piece of an entire league's worth of stories that I have for you to explore in the website linked in the description. If you want more videos and you like this kind of format, I'll be churning out more of those soon as I'm on break from school. And the results are in, by the way. I can't wait to share with you what Madden's simulation machines had in store for Reese Gardner and the Orioles in this make or break year. It's still a work in progress, of course. I have a lot of stuff to write, and I'm not going to release it until I have all of these stories tied up in a nice little bow. So it might be a little while, but I am really excited, and it's cool to be sitting on, the future of the NFA. I'm really hoping you guys are liking this little sports pocket universe I've created. I'm totally open to feedback as well. My email's in the description if you guys have any ideas for where I should take this thing, and any feedback as well, I would happily want to hear. So yeah, feel free to reach out, and take care. Happy holidays, everyone, and cheers.